In this video, I'm going to go over what I mean by my father running away from his problems. So, when I bring this up, let's say when I brought this up about the overdose back in Maine years ago. You know what my father's response was? Don't talk about your mother that way. Don't talk about, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. So he wasn't going to have a conversation about the overdose then. When I bring up other lists, when I give him more information like on these videos, let's say I slip and I mix up Zyprexa with Xanax and Xanax with Zyprexa. Let's say I mix up a word like that. Then he goes, see, I knew you're a liar. You're lying. It wasn't Xanax, it was Zyprexa. So everything you're saying must be a lie. So I'm going to go back to vacationing because you're a liar and you can go suffer. He doesn't ask no questions. He doesn't try to get to the bottom of it, and he doesn't consider that people make mistakes, especially when their nervous system is fucked up, and they're trying to talk. Um, and I have a lot of difficulty, and they notice this in the schools in Westford right away. My mother and father covered this up by trafficking me to Texas and all around the world, making it so doctors could never actually get a read on me. Anyway, so my father will do stuff like that. He'll pick out a word or a statement which is a mistake and ignore all the other evidence, all the other stuff that's true that I'm going over. All because I use the word Zyprexa instead of Xanax and Xanax instead of Zyprexa or something. I'll make one little mistake like that, or I'll stutter, or something like that, and then he'll decide to turn that into, I'm a liar, I'm a big liar, this is all a fantasy, and I'm going to run away. I'm going to go back and ignore you. I'm going to turn off my phone. I'm not going to do anything. Well, this is not good. This is how you kill somebody, Dad, is what I like to tell him. I like to be like, Dad, this is going to get somebody killed. You already had your wife die from this bullshit. How about not me next? Why don't we handle this before anybody else dies, huh? I mean, my mother was popping frickin' Vicodin in front of you. She was drinking alcohol as her liver failed. I mean, she was doing horrible stuff to a child in front of you. All three of your sons said there was a problem with her. I mean, if every son that you have comes up to you and says, something is going on with your second wife, something is going on, says something is going on, maybe you should fucking listen before somebody gets hurt. But he didn't. He didn't listen to me. He didn't listen to his other son. He didn't even listen to his wife's son. Instead, he allowed this all to continue, and then she died of liver failure. And now I have to suffer some more because he's allowing it to continue some more. After 25 years, my father is continuing to let people around him get hurt because of choices that him and his wife made 25 years ago. And he continues to make bad choices to cover this up more and more. More hurtful choices that could get me killed. And he is. He's trying to make sure that nobody ever believes me. He wants to make sure of this. So he uses one-liners like, this is a fantasy. He's making it up. It's all not true. Meanwhile, he hasn't even spent the time looking through the information. And he has his own information that he's ignoring. Like the fact that my mother was acting crazy with alcohol and pills. The fact that my mother admitted to giving me extra medications as a punishment. He's totally ignoring the facts so he can run from this. And he does this a lot. That's what I mean by running from this. He ignores facts. He ignores what he already knows to be true. He ignores his daughter. He ignores his sons. He continues to just run away into, like, go out to eat, go to the beach, turn off his phones. He doesn't want anything to do with the mess he created. Meanwhile, I'm left to suffer. I can't drive, I can't walk, I can't work, I can't collect my Social Security, I can't live because my father has taken my life away from me. I mean, I can't get, anybody else would just go and get Social Security. But I can't because my father and mother lied and manipulated their Social Security. So Social Security doesn't even know heads to tail what my disabilities really are. I have been trying for years and years to work with Social Security, but it always comes down to my father, who literally all he has to do is tell the truth, and this all could be fixed. On top of this, I can't drive until I get medical help. Once when I'm a year free without shakes, seizures, or uncontrollable muscle movements, then I could drive. But that would require people taking this seriously and then me working with a neurologist and getting this documented on paper so I could get a diagnosis. But that's never going to happen because my father doesn't want it to happen. He doesn't want me getting better. He doesn't want me driving. Because for me to drive, we would need to handle this mess. Because then the doctors will have it documented, and no matter what happens, no matter what state, no matter what town I go to, no matter which doctor I go to, they'll have the truth on paper so that they can continue with my care. But instead, I cannot get that. All I can get is Thorazine and Seroquel. That's not going to help the numbness in my hands and feet. It's not going to help the seizures. It's not going to help the falls on the side of the road when I start shaking. It's not going to help this morning when my muscles are shaking and I'm getting shocked to death like I got a taser in my body. Now, this has been going on for 25 years on different severities. And with all the pills like Xanax and things mixed in, sometimes it was better, sometimes it was worse. And I never had the words. I was a goddamn child. And this is another thing my father does. He expects me to be an adult at 5 years old. I'll give you an example. My father says that it was my fault he moved to Texas because at 7 years old, I agreed with my mother. Now, I also agreed with my father. I said, yes, I want to move to Texas. No, I don't want to move to Texas. Yes, I want to move to Texas. No, I don't want to move to Texas. Then my mother said, stick with me. Stick with my answer. So I did. Now, if you ask my father why he moved to Texas, he'll tell you it's all his 7-year-old son's fault. Oh, my son was a tiebreaker, so it's his fault. He expects a 7-year-old to understand what the consequences of picking up your life and moving to Texas is. He's expecting a 7-year-old to understand everything an adult should understand. Like if your child is going to the doctors and having serious problems, and he just spoke up about losing his vision during an overdose and losing his nervous system during this overdose, it's probably not a good idea to move all the way on the other side of the country all of a sudden. I did not know this because I was only like 5 to 7 years old. But my father, he treats me like an adult at 7. And I'm supposed to have the responsibility of an adult at age 7. And this is what I'm talking about. He tries to use stuff like that as the reason, and there is no justification for this. There's no justification for doing evil. I mean, my mother might be waiting to get into heaven for my father to handle this to this day. And the minute my father dies without handling this, maybe they both don't get in. I have no clue. I'm trying to save their souls, for goodness sake. I've already forgiven them. I've looked them in the face and had them hurt me some more. I'm used to them being assholes. I'm used to my father yelling at me. I'm used to my father going over to me and smacking me twice over a USB. I'm used to my father remarrying and forgetting about everything that just happened. I'm used to my father running away from his problems while his wife is drinking alcohol with her liver failing. I'm used to my father letting her act completely nuts in the car, screaming like a lunatic. I'm used to telling my father that my mother just smacked me for no reason and him not caring. I'm used to my mother trying to convince me that I have mental illnesses and my father just sitting there drinking. I'm used to this behavior. But it's still not right. There's no justification for it. Just because I stand in front of you and I take this bullshit and I just take some more, and I take a gut punch, and I take another punch from him, and I take another fucking punch from him. And these are hypothetical punches. These are his words and his actions. This is like him calling my doctor and telling him not to listen to me so I can't get medical care. That would be a punch that I got. This is the type of shit I'm talking about. All I want is medical care. I want to move on. I want to be able to drive. I want to be able to walk properly. I want to be able to move my arms properly. I want to be able to talk properly in the cold. I want to not have such a problem with the cold. And this is all very possible. All it requires is for people to believe me, go over the evidence that exists, because there's a whole bunch of it. I just can't drive to get it. If my father really wanted to prove this, he could. All he would have to do is retrace his steps. There are plenty of doctors. And now that I'm an adult, I can go over these papers and explain them better. Because now I have the words to explain what was going on with me during childhood. I also have plenty of times my mother acted completely nuts in front of witnesses. Now, you should have been there when it was just me and her. Oh, fuck. Oh, she lost her mind. Oh, that's why she died. She was taking pills, drinking, and she had a big guilt problem. It was very obvious that she was guilty about what she was doing to me. But this needs to be handled or I have to die. And I'm going to pray and pray and pray. And today is Easter, by the way. This is going through me on Easter. It's supposed to be a happy God day. I'm going to be praying, going to church, or somebody's supposed to pick me up. In my condition, I really can't move. So I'm not sure if they're actually going to come by. I'm probably not going to be able to go to church because nobody will bring me. And there's no way I could walk or move really. And I can't go on the bus in my condition. So the only way I can get to church on this Sunday, well, there are no buses on Sunday, is if somebody picks me up and brings me. Which I could go to church if my father didn't destroy my body. If my body wasn't shaking so much right now, or if my body wasn't shaking so much last year, or if my body wasn't shaking so much when I was 16, or maybe if my body wasn't shaking and looking bad at 14, maybe if I wasn't looking like I was dying at 10, maybe if my body was working at age 10, maybe if my body was working at age 8, maybe if we handled this at age 8, then I would be driving today. But because my father will not handle his shit, I cannot drive. And because I can't drive, I have to ask other people for rides to church. And if they don't want to show up today, then I miss out on my church. Now, why am I missing out on church? Because I can't drive. And why can't I drive? Because my mother crippled and destroyed my nervous system. So I can't move my body properly. And they've known this for 25 years. The doctors have known I have problems moving my body for 25 years. They didn't know what the cause was. They were very concerned. They called it a coordination issue, but they didn't quite know why I'm not able to move my body properly. I mean, for my whole life I was bumping into stuff in my shins. My shins were always cut up on something. Usually tables. My arms, I end up hitting doorknobs a lot. That's another one. This has been going on forever, but it affects my life every day. Right now, I want to get in the car and I want to go to church, but I can't because my father will not take responsibility for his actions. Not only that, he's a victim. My mother lied to him constantly. I believe he truly is a victim of my mother's as well. But maybe the way he's acting, maybe he isn't. Maybe he was complicit in it. Maybe it was his idea to do some of these things. I have no idea what was going on. All I can tell you is the truth. Everything in these videos is the God honest truth. I cannot tell you what my father was thinking in his head. I do not know that. But I do know what happened. And then you can decide what it means. Like, for instance, if you go back in these videos, the night of the overdose, I have explained many, many times. Now, when you go over the information, it's very clear that my mother was trying to hide this. Her actions prove this. Her decisions prove this. And it's not, and when people try to lie and go, it never happened, she never gave you extra Epicac. Well, let's talk to the witnesses where she admitted to it. I worked really hard to get my mother to admit to what she was doing to me, and I did. She did admit to the Epicac one. She said, yeah, I gave extra medicine to Zach as a punishment, so what? And she said this in front of my father, my sister, and my brother-in-law. Now, that wasn't the only time. From age 7 all the way on, she bragged about giving me a full bottle of Epicac to her friends as well. This is fucked up shit. And I should not have to not be able to go to church because my father wants to be a douche and not clean up his mess. No, my father can be a good, holy man. He can come and have a conversation. He can sit with me at church and we can talk about this. And he can try to take responsibility for his actions. And maybe his wife in heaven can get in. Because I'm still suffering from what she did to me. And I doubt that God is letting her in with me still suffering down here from what she did to me. There's probably a lot more to this, and we're all going to meet back up. And if this doesn't get handled, oh boy, we got a serious problem when all three of us meet up. Oh yeah. I mean, if I die from this without getting any help, my father dies pretending and trying to lie his way out of it, and my mother's already dead from her own drinking and pilling, sitting up there someplace after I've already forgiven them, well, we're all going to meet up there and there's going to be a big problem. Oh, yes, there is. There's going to be a big ass problem with you guys getting into heaven. Oh, yeah, because you guys are going to have to convince me. Oh, yeah, you guys are committing sins right to your deathbed. You guys have not asked for forgiveness. You guys even haven't even admitted you committed a sin. So how could you ask God for forgiveness? Because fuck me. They'll never ask me for forgiveness. I give out forgiveness like it's freaking candy. I had to. I got abused so often, I got drugged so often that that's the only way I can handle this. I learned how to be forgiving on a dime. I forgive, I forgive, I forgive, I forgive. I mean, I've even forgiven people who try to rape me. I've forgiven people who try to stab me. I've been able to forgive and forgive. But my father doesn't even want to admit this is real, so how do you forgive something that isn't real? You can't. So my father's going to go to the grave lying and manipulating and not even admitting to the sin that's killing somebody. He literally killed somebody else's child. Or I should say, he's literally helping his wife kill somebody else's child. Or I should say it this way, my father helped his second wife destroy somebody else's child's body for life, caused unimmense levels of suffering for 25 years. Even during my childhood, I wasn't getting an education. For 18 months, I was in New Mexico playing in the woods. No proper classes. When we went to Maine, no proper classes. And then, even in Massachusetts, there was a whole year where all I did was play Yu-Gi-Oh cards. A whole entire year. So there are problems that need to be handled. Now, all the other kids in that school who played Yu-Gi-Oh for a year, some of those parents got lawsuits. Some of them actually did the right thing when they were told. When I told my parents about this, they just called the school and once again forgot about it. They said, oh fuck, it's probably just a Zach story. We're not going to deal with it. So I now have to live with a year blank in my education, a whole year missing. I have to live with that. And this is a failure of my mother and father. My mother and father were told that there was no classes at this school and I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Now it leaves my hands. This stuff continues to happen. I mean, my father watched my mother drink booze as her liver was failing, and it was very obvious she lied about wanting to come home and see her family, because she didn't spend any time with me or anything. No, all she wanted to do was get straight to that liquor cabinet when she came in. And I studied to be an addiction counselor. I did, and I even had a little degree. And if I could go, if somebody would drive me, I'd go get that degree again because I actually did want to use it. And what that degree says is that I took classes to identify addicts. I've spent my whole life learning these type of things. So I can tell you for sure that my mother, while she was dying in the hospital for liver failure, that her addiction was in her mind. Her addiction was getting to her. So she came up with an excuse to get to the liquor. How can I get to the liquor? How can I get to the liquor? My liver is failing, but I want to get to the liquor. So she told her family, I want to see my family. Told the doctors, I want to see my family. I want to see my family. But the minute she comes in the door, she doesn't go to see her family. She goes to see her liquor cabinet. Maybe those liquor bottles was her family. Maybe my mother really thought that that bottle of vodka was her son. Maybe that's why she told the doctor that that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to see her family and her son, right? Well, she sure did. She saw a nice big bottle of vodka right away, and then she caused my mental status to get worse. My father allowed this behavior. So don't believe his bullshit if he tries to act like he doesn't know. No, he knows that this is real. He just doesn't want it to be real. There's an old saying, you can't handle the truth. And it's true, my father does not want to handle the truth. Instead, he wants to go back in the fantasy land. Because if he goes back in the fantasy land, I go back in the fantasy land, and the doctors continue staying in fantasy land, then I continue to die, I continue to get drugged and hurt, he gets to continue to vacation on the beach and drink and eat expensive dinners. The doctors continue to fuck me up, and then when I die, nobody finds out, right? Because you just kept everything in fantasy land. Well, I can't live in a dead woman's fantasy, and I refuse to. I'm living in the real world. I'm living in God's world. I live on the world that God made for us. I live in the reality. The reality is that somebody did fucked up shit to me. And there are the hundreds of witnesses to all different types of fucked up shit that was done to me. And no matter how my father wants to run away from this, it's true. I could come up with every single part of my childhood, beginning to end, good and bad. And there'll always be something fucked up my mother was doing. Some things I don't even know are fucked up. Sometimes I'm just telling people about this stuff, and then they tell me, oh, that's not right. And I go, what do you mean that's not right? Well, your mother shouldn't be doing that to you. Really? I didn't know that. A mother's not supposed to give her child a whole bottle of Epicac as a punishment? I thought that was normal. I thought mothers did that type of stuff. No, mothers aren't supposed to be giving full bottles of Epicac as punishments. That's fucked up, Zach. Oh, I didn't know that. So conversations like that.